Welcome to the congregation of Yahweh in Panama City, Florida. This is Yahweh's Sabbath. We're gathered together today to worship Him in spirit and in truth. We have some scripture that points to some things that we need to understand. In the book of Revelation, chapter 12 and verse 1, and a great sign was given in the heaven, a woman clad with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And this is a sign that Yahweh is going to reveal to His people. Verse 2, and being pregnant, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign was seen in the heaven, and see, a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his head, and his tail draws a third of the stars of the heavens and throws them to the earth, and the heaven and the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she bore a male child who was to shepherd all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught away to Elohim and to his throne. And see, this is Israel. And this is what the scripture is written to Israel. And we need to understand that because it gives us the understanding of the word. Israel is the object of Yahweh's work on this earth. And when we understand that, we can see how He is going to save this earth and how He is going to deal with the people on this earth. In verse 6, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by Elohim to be nourished there 1,260 days. And there came to be fighting in the heaven. Michael and his messengers fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his messengers fought. But they were not strong enough, nor was a place found for them in the heaven any longer. And the great dragon was thrown out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who leads all the world astray. And he was thrown to the earth, and his messengers were thrown out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in the heaven, now have come the deliverance and the power of the reign of our Elohim, and the authority of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brothers, who accused them before our Elohim day and night, has been thrown down. And now this is metaphoric language of how Yahweh is conducting the nations on the earth today and throughout the generation. We're still and I believe we're in the latter end of the accomplishment of this. And if we can understand it, if we read it, let Yahweh speak to us and teach us about it. Verse 11, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and because of the word of their witness, and they did not love their lives to the death. Because of this, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has little time. And this is the confusion that's been on the earth in the history of man on the earth. He said, verse 13, and when the dragon saw that he had been thrown to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. And the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle to fly into the wilderness to her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and a half time from the presence of the serpent. And out of his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river after the woman, to cause her to be swept away by the river. And the earth helped the woman. And the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the river. And the dragon had spewed out of his mouth. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, whose guarding and commands of Elohim and possessing the witness of Yahweh, of Yeshua Messiah. And see, if you look at the history of the earth, according to what is most people can get the literature to find out, and see the migrations of the people, which nations have from ancient times come up and excelled, and then was crushed, and come up and excelled and crushed, even up until modern times. And you can see the pattern that Yahweh has been dealing with the woman, basically, who is called Israel. In Revelation 11 and 15, and the 7th messenger sounded, and there came to be loud voices in the heaven, saying, the reign of this world has become the reign of our Master and his Messiah, and he shall reign forever and ever. And when we understand that Yeshua is the one that's going to be the master of the earth, and he is going to reign forever. In Daniel chapter 2 and verse 44, and in the days of these sovereigns, the Allah of the heavens shall set up a reign which shall never be destroyed. When he completes the cycle of this earth and puts down the man-made kingdoms and sets up his kingdom, he says, nor the rain pass on to other people. It crushes and puts to the end all these reigns, and it shall stand forever. And when we understand that when Yahweh completes this, that his people will be delivered, his people will be able to be resurrected and live forever. In Colossians chapter 2 and verse 16, let no one therefore judge you in eating or in drinking, or in respect of a festival, or a new moon or Sabbath, which are a shadow of what is to come, but the body of the Messiah. Let no one deprive you of the prize. One who takes delight in false humility and worship of messengers, taking his stand on what he has not seen, puffed up by his fleshly mind, and not holding fast to the head, from whom all the body, nourished and knit together by joints and ligaments, grows with the growth of Elohim. In Genesis chapter 12 and verse 1, and Yahweh said to Abram, go yourself out to your land, from your relatives, and from your father's house, to a land which I show you, and I shall make you a great nation, and bless you, and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And Abraham's genealogy down through Isaac and Jacob, right on down to Israel, when his name was changed to Israel, Yahweh has let this group of people, this nation, wherever they have migrated, be the blessing. In verse 3, Genesis 12 and 3, and I shall bless those who bless you, and curse him who curses you, and in all the clans of the earth shall be blessed. Verse 4, and Abram left as Yahweh had commanded him, and Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. And we skip to Isaiah chapter 66 and verse 7. Before she labored, she gave birth. Before a pain came to her, she was delivered of a male child. And this is the metaphoric language that of Yahweh using, speaking about the birth of Messiah and also his nation. Verse 8, who have heard the like of this? Who has seen the like of these? Is a land brought forth in one day? Is a nation born at once? For as soon as Zion labored, she gave birth to her children. Shall I bring to birth and not give delivery, says Yahweh? Shall I, who give delivery, restrain birth, says your Elohim? Psalms 81 and verse 1. Shout for joy to Elohim, our strength. Raise a shout to the Elohim of Yaakov. Lift up a song and beat the tambourine, the pleasant lyre with the harp. Blow the ram's horn at the time of the new moon, at the full moon, on our feast day. For this is a law for Israel, and a right ruling of the Elohim of Yaakov. He appointed it in Joseph for a witness when he went throughout the land of Mitzrayim and heard a language that he did not know. He says, I removed his shoulder from the burden. His hands were freed from the baskets. You called in distress, and I rescued you. I answered you in the covering of thunder. I proved you at the waters of Meribah, Selah. Hear, O my people. Let me warn you, O Israel, if you would listen to me. Let there be no strange mighty ones among you, and do not bow down to a foreign mighty one. I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. Open your mouth wide, and I will fill it. But my people did not listen to my voice, and Israel would not submit to me. So I gave them over to their own stubborn heart, to walk in their own counsels. And that's where free moral agency comes in to the life of humans. Oh, if my people had listened to me, Israel would walk in my ways. I would subdue their enemies at once and turn my hand against their adversaries. Those who hate Yahweh would cringe before him, and their time of punishment be forever. He would feed them with the finest of wheat, and with honey from the rock I would satisfy you. Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 1. At that time, declares Yahweh, I shall be the Elohim of all the clans of Israel, and they shall be my people. Thus saith Yahweh, a people escaped from the sword found favor in the wilderness. Israel, when it went to find rest. Yahweh appeared to me from afar, saying, I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore I shall draw you with kindness. I am going to build you again, and you shall be rebuilt. O maiden of Israel, again you shall take up your tambourines and go forth in the dances of those who rejoice. Again you shall plant vines on the mountains of Shemaron. The planters shall plant and treat them as common. For there shall be a day when the watchmen cry on Mount Ephraim, Arise, let us go up to Zion, to Yahweh our Elohim. For thus saith Yahweh, Sing with gladness for Yaakov, and shout among the chief of the nations. Cry out, give praise, and say, O Yahweh, save your people, the remnant of Israel. See, I am bringing them from the land of the north, and shall gather them from the ends of the earth. Among them the blind and the lame, those with child and those in labor, together a great assembly returning here. With weeping they shall come, and with their prayers I bring them. I shall make them walk by rivers of waters in a straight way, in which they do not stumble. For I shall be a father to Israel and Ephraim. He is my firstborn. Hear the word of Yahweh, O Gentiles, and declare it in the isles afar off, and say, He who scattered Israel gathers him, and shall guard him as a shepherd his flock. For Yahweh shall ransom Yaakov, and redeem him from the hand of one stronger than he. And they shall come in and shall sing on the height of Zion, and stream to the goodness of Yahweh, for grain and for new wine, for oil and for the young of the flock and the herd, and their being shall be like a well-watered garden, and never languish again. Verse 13. Then shall a maiden rejoice in a dance, and young men and old together, and I shall turn their mourning to joy, and shall comfort them, and shall make them rejoice from their sorrow. Verse 14, and shall fill the being with the priest with fatness, and my people shall be satisfied with my goodness, declares Yahweh. Thus saith Yahweh, a voice was heard in Ramah, wailing, bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children. refusing to be comforted for her children, because they are no more. Verse 16, Thus saith Yahweh, Hold back your voice from weeping, and your eyes from tears, for there is a reward for your work, declares Yahweh. And they shall return from the land of the enemy. And there is expectancy for your latter end, declares Yahweh. And your children shall return to their own country. And I have clearly heard Ephraim lamenting, You have chastised me, and I was chastised. Like an untrained calf, turn me back, and I shall turn back. For you are Yahweh, my Elohim. For after my turning back, I repented. After I was instructed, I struck myself on the thigh, and I was ashamed, even humiliated, for I bore the reproach of my youth. Is Ephraim a precious son to me, a child of delights? For though I spoke against him, I still remembered him. That is, my affections were deeply moved for him. I have great compassion for him, declares Yahweh. Set up signposts, make landmarks, set your heart toward the highway, the way which you went. Turn back, O maiden of Israel. Turn back to those cities of yours, till when you would turn here and there, O backsliding daughter. For Yahweh has created what is new on earth. A woman encompasses a man. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, Let them once again say this word in the land of Yehudah, in its cities, when I turn back their captivity. Yahweh bless you, O home of righteousness, mountain of set-apartness. And in Yehudah and all its cities, farmers, those who journey with flocks, shall dwell together. For I shall fill the weary being, and I shall replenish every grieved being. At this I awoke and looked around, and my sleep was sweet to me. See, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, that I shall sow the house of Israel and the house of Yehudah with the seed of man and the seed of beast. And it shall be that as I have watched over them to pluck up and to break down and to throw down and to destroy and to afflict, so I shall watch over them to build and to plant, declares Yahweh. In those days they shall no longer say, The fathers ate sour grapes, and the children's teeth are blunted. But each one shall die for his own crookedness. Whoever eats sour grapes, his teeth shall be blunted. See, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I shall make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah. Not like the covenant I made with their fathers in the day which I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mitzrayim, my covenant which they broke, though I was a husband to them, declares Yahweh. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yahweh. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts and write it on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall they teach one each one his neighbor, and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahweh? For they shall all know me, and from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahweh. For I shall forgive their crookedness, and remember their sin no more. Verse 35. Thus shall Yahweh, thus saith Yahweh, who gives the sun for a light by day, and the laws of the moon and the stars for a light by night, who stirs up the sea and its waves roar. Yahweh of hosts is his name. If these laws vanish from before me, declares Yahweh, then the seed of Israel shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. Thus saith Yahweh, if the heavens above could be measured, and the foundation of the earth searched out beneath, I would also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, declares Yahweh. See, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, that the city shall be built for Yahweh, from the tower of Haniel to the corner gate, and the measuring line shall again extend straight ahead to the hill of Gareb. Then it shall turn toward Goah, and all the valley of the dead bodies and of the ashes, and all the fields as far as the Wadi Kidron, to the corner of the horse gate toward the east, is to be set apart to Yahweh. It shall not be plucked up or thrown down any more forever. In Hebrews chapter 8 and verse 1. Now, the summary of what we are saying is, we have such a high priest who is seated at the right hand of the throne of greatness in the heavens. Verse 2. Who serves in the set-apart place and of the true tent, which Yahweh set up, and not man. For every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and slaughterings. So it was also necessary for this one to have somewhat to offer. For if indeed he were on earth, he would not be a priest, since there are priests who offer the gifts according to the Torah, who serve a copy and shadow of the heavenly. As Moshe was warned when he was about to make the tent, for he said, See that you make all according to the pattern shown for you on the mountain. But now he has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. For if the first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. Hebrews 8 and 8. For finding fault with them, he says, See, the days are coming, saith Yahweh, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah a renewed covenant, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mitzrayim, because they did not continue in my covenant, and I disregarded them, says Yahweh. Because this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Yahweh, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall by no means teach each one his neighbor, and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahweh? Because they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, because I shall forgive their unrighteousness, and their sin, and their lawlessness, and I shall no longer remember. By saying, renewed, he has made the first old. Now what becomes old and growing aged is near disappearing. This is the covenant that I shall make with them after those days, says Yahweh, giving my laws into their hearts, and in their minds I shall write them. Verse 17, and their sins and their lawlessness I shall remember no more. Now, where there is forgiveness of these, there is no longer a slaughter offering for sin. So, brothers, having boldness to enter into the set apart place by the blood of Yeshua, by a new and living way, which he instituted for us through the veil, that is, his flesh, and having a high priest over the house of Elohim, let us draw near with a true heart, in completeness of belief, having our hearts sprinkled from a wicked conscience to our bodies washed with clean water. Let us hold fast the confession of our expectation without yielding, for he who promised is trustworthy. And let us be concerned for one another in order to stir up love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging, and so much more as you see the day coming near. For if the sin purposely, after we have received the knowledge of their truth, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for sin, but some fearsome anticipation of judgment and of fierce fire, which is about to consume the opponents. Anyone who has disregarded the Torah of Moshe dies without compassion on the witness of two or more witnesses. Now, how much worse punishment do you think shall he deserve who has trampled the Son of Elohim underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which he was set apart as common, and insulted the spirit of favor? For we know him who has said, Vengeance is mine, I shall repay, says Yahweh. And again, Yahweh shall judge his people. It is fearsome to fall in the hands of the living Elohim. But remember the former days when, after you were enlightened, you endured a great struggle with sufferings. On the one hand, you were exposed to reproaches and pressures, and on the other hand, you became sharers with those who were so treated. For you sympathized with me in my chains, and you accepted with joy the seizure of your possessions, knowing that you have a better and a lasting possession for yourselves in the heavens. Do not then lose your boldness, which has great reward, for you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the desire of Elohim, you receive the promise. For yet a little while, he who is coming shall come and shall not delay. But the righteous shall live by belief. But if any one draws back, my being has no pleasure in him. But we are not of those who draw back to destruction, but of belief to the preservation of life. In Jeremiah 31 and 33. For this is the covenant I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Yahweh. I shall put my Torah in their inward parts, and write it on their hearts. And I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And no longer shall they teach each one his neighbor, and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahweh. For they shall know me from the least of them to the greatest of them, declares Yahweh. For I shall forgive their crookedness, and remember their sin no more. Thus said Yahweh, who gives his sun for a light by day, and the laws of the moon and the stars for a light by night, who stirs up the sea and its waves roar. Yahweh of hosts is his name. If these laws vanish from before me, declares Yahweh, then the seed of Israel shall also cease from being a nation before me forever. Thus saith Yahweh, if the heavens above could be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, I would also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, declares Yahweh. See, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, that the city shall be built for Yahweh from the tower of Haniel to the corner gate, and the measured line shall again extend straight ahead to the hill Gareb. Then it shall turn toward Goa, and all the valley of the dead bodies, and of the ashes, and of the fields, as far as the Wadi Kidron, to the corner of the horse gate toward the east, is to be set apart to Yahweh. It shall not be plucked up or thrown down any more forever. May Yahweh bless and keep you.